Hello, hello, hello. It's an honor to be with you here once again at Lead Live. Today, we're going to talk about mindset of successful leaders, professionals who ensure the success of their respective businesses. Success. So many different ways to describe success. Makes me smile, even though there's so much underneath that iceberg of success that demonstrates or reveals the real awesome power of each individual who contributes to the success of their organization. And I do mean to use the words awesome and power. Success, the predictable result of hard work, patience, sacrifice, and learning put it into everyday practice or put into practice every day. It's one basic definition of success. Predictable result. Emphasis on predictable. You do something, you do it consistently, you do it well, you do it leveraging a system that has evidence, success over and over again. Success is definitely an outcome. And yet, if we really value it, success is just it's part of the journey to something much more fulfilling. So as I move forward and discuss what we here at Lead Live focus on, I want you to pay attention to what comes to your mind about success, because it really is your mindset that is a precondition to what you experience daily. Hmm. Keys. What if you lived as if your identity, your personal identity, your business identity really was exactly what you'd experience in life? What if you lived as if all that you identify as you, that you identify with your business, equals your lived experiences? What if you lived as if there's a great spirit, omnipotent presence, God, genius, universal life energy, a force that is equal to or greater than anything we can imagine? That's the epitome of ultimate genius. What if you lived as if everyone, including you, is born with greatness? What if you lived as if you do more, one more thing, and one more thing, and one more thing, and your life will be completely different? Yes, I mentioned God. I mentioned the Great Spirit. I mentioned the universal life force. I mentioned energy. It has no bounds, no respective place or time. In fact, it understands that there's no such thing as real time. It's an illusion that we leverage as humans, because what happened in the past and the future coexist with the present. We really understand the essence of life itself. And yet, all we have is the moment we're in. And we get to leverage this moment to create the next moment, which has already been preconceived by the moments that we experience now, with the consciousness we have now, the decisions we're making now, the feelings that are aligned with those thoughts and decisions that leads to the behaviors that results in the next moment, the so-called future. Remember, when you think about success, think about, feel what comes to mind. What are you feeling as you think about success? And then what comes to mind when you think about just do it? Do you know who you are more than your name, your age, your body, your history? Really, do you know who you are? Do you know your thoughts, your mindset, your feelings? Do you know who you are? I'm not talking about those things that were imposed on you, the programming that you may actually be living more so than the essence of who you are. Do you know who you are? Do you know your worth? In real terms, your worth, W O R T A, W O R T H, W O R T H. What am I talking about? Yeah, I know the easy disposition of us is to go to money. What else do we do? We go to other imaginings, things. They reflect our worth. But what about your value, your inherent value, your innate assets that you are born with? What about love for self and other assets? What about appreciating you? What are your expectations of you? You're in an organization, whether it's an organization you yourself have created with others, or you are working in magic in tandem with others to build, and it's someone else's organization. What are your expectations of you in relationship to your treatment of yourself? What about service to others? Are you engaged in a level of excitement and joy, positivity? Are you kind to self, kind and respectful to others, independent of anything that occurs or you imagine or feel? Bigger question. Do you have a system? What do we call system? Colleagues with whom I work, system is saving your time, yourself, time, energy, and money. System, saving yourself time, energy, and money. Do you have a system that you're able to leverage that allows you to be that essence of who you are authentically, genuinely, contribute, build magically, transparently, easily, or with great difficulty? The system, you know what to do, it's predictable, when to do it, how to do it. You're honoring the fact that that system has worked time and time and time again, and you're able to deliver because you didn't waver. Are you focused? Are you focused? What is focus? Colleagues also, we say focus is follow one course until successful. Focused. Are you focused? Are you able to follow one course until successful? What about your commitment? Is it unwavering? Do you persist? Are you steadfast to the priorities established? Are you mentally tough? Do you do one more thing always in order to get to the ends that you've already imagined? Do you own your own thoughts, your mindset, your feelings, your time? There are so many people I can reference right now. Tony Robbins did an interview, and he has a book that's coming out, or actually, excuse me, it came out earlier this year. And I can't think of it, and it'll come to me hopefully before I end, or someone will put it in the chat. And it's all about using the various options available to heal ourselves. And there are assets on this planet that are remarkable, have always been there, and some of them, because of the ingenuity and the genius of those of us out there, we're creating them anew and ensuring that people's organs are what do you call it? Regrown in a way to ensure that they're healthier, ensure that people's ability to see, whether it's a child who was born without sight now can see. I mean, all kinds of fascinating things have been happening for years, folks. And among the things he talked about in this particular interview, and it's online, and maybe I can add it to the post when and you can remind me, Jethro, when we publish this video. And he talked about the power of each one of us influencing the other. And we think we own our own thoughts, our mindset, our feelings, or even our time. And yet, we can, through studies, and have done through studies, demonstrated how so many of us are not owning our thoughts. We don't even know what our mindset is. And it's borrowed from someone else, or it's been indoctrinated because of our exposure, choices we've made, or just random, let alone our feelings and the way we use our time. I find myself, I'll personalize it, that I've decided I'm going to do X. And before I know it, I'm doing Y, and Y has captivated me for 3 hours. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And immediately I shut it down, because the idea of being manipulated by something else, even if it's not intentional, even if it's just me giving myself away for that moment, it may be exciting and enjoyable, but it wasn't what I planned. And often we do that, folks. And it's okay if it doesn't harm us. It's actually okay if it complements us and gets us where we want to go. But too often, it does just the inverse. It harms us. It undermines our ability to move forward. So, do you own your thoughts, your mindset, your feelings? Do you own your time? Asking these questions for a reason. Are you driving you? Are you the engine that does? Are you fueled internally to make things happen? I like to use the metaphor of the internal combustion engine. Are you making things happen? Are you driven by forces outside of you? And it's important to be honest about that. It's okay that you're not where you want to be, yet first acknowledging where you're at and understanding it is a precondition to getting to where you want to be. Now, I mentioned all those things early on, and the topic today is what? The topic today is just do it. Mindset of successful businesses, business leaders, including the professionals who run those organizations, who ensure the success of those organizations. Their mindset are such that they could answer those questions in their own way, demonstrating ownership wherever they're at, demonstrating a level of engagement that even they may not even initially understand what the heck they were doing, that they were driven, they're part of a culture, and they did more than just imagine and imagine big. Wow. Due to the leadership, we have so many, many, many stories. And I decided, I had initially decided to tell two major stories of organizations. And then I thought that's not fair to people who are going to be influenced by just those two stories. So I want to ask you to think about the stories you know, that you yourself lived, or you know others lived, whether it's a corporation in a town that you are part of, whether it is a community based organization that you help to develop as a board member or as a support staff or a volunteer, whether it's a municipality that you elected officials to run and they're doing it exceptionally, or it's a village where people are coming together and imagining big, and they've done more than just imagine big. They've done the following. They literally went to the unfamiliar, where some people calls it awesome space, and others would say scary. And when I was thinking about that, I thought about the author of The Singularity of is Near, that thick, dense book that my brother asked me to get for one of my nieces, his daughters, when she was at UC Davis. I'll never forget. And I thought, I'm going to read that. And dense with a lot of academic stuff. And yet the kernel of it was so insightful. He could see it years before he wrote that book, that technology and humans would become one. And he didn't say that they necessarily how that would manifest completely. He did make it very clear that the singularity of technology and man, woman, all of us would be aligned. And so that's scary. That's a big imagining. And where did he get that from? Well, from research, from observations, from studying and having conversations with other scientists, engineers, thought partners. And so that's how we tend to imagine big. That's how the successful businesses really become successful. Yes, there's usually one or two or three individuals who are masterminding, literally going big, big time, in their own confidential setting. And they, the he's, the she's, the they's, they're just dreaming. And I shouldn't say just, they're dreaming. And they dream big. But then they do more than just dream. They begin to concretize it. I don't even think that's a word, but I've been using that word for years. That operationalize it. They drive that vision. They force themselves to move, to create, to engage, to be much more than folks who are sitting around talking and collaborating and coming up with a huge vision to clarify the big imaginings, the dreams. They go far beyond that. And that big imagining a dream is akin to financial independence of millions or billions, a way of being. They wake up, they produce, they focus. They ultimately reduce it down to or elevate it up to a mission where solutions to the world, impacting lives, solving business problems are core to the essence of that big, call it fantasy, imaginings that becomes a vision, that becomes operationalized further in missions and core values and goals. But even before they get to particular goals, and sometimes as they get to particular goals, they're interacting. They're driven by a faith. They may not profess to believe in a particular deity or a universal entity or being or even the universe. They just are driven. They have a faith, and that faith ensures they don't waver. Some of them value their family so much. They want this to work because they want to make a difference, a legacy for their family. Others are really focused on the bottom line, bringing in whatever assets that's going to result from providing a solution that people demand or people need, and they don't even know they will be demanding. And they are engaging in ways to ensure that they stay remarkably fit for the challenge. Sometimes that's physical fitness. That's ideal. Sometimes it's emotional fitness. That's critical. It's definitely intellectual fitness, invaluable. All those align to a higher spiritual that connects back to that faith. That some of them are able to say it is a faith in a higher deity. It is a faith that everything is connected and that team, that mastermind is about the business of magnifying their faith and ensuring the collective well-being because of what they're doing. And so this mastermind team, they develop, whether consciously and typically it's unconsciously, a collective mindset, a culture where literally they're manifesting through a collective of people who share values, are driven to achieve the same mission. They use their ways of being to enhance the organization, to further magnify that vision. They honor that diverse ways of being. They may find it uncomfortable and have some disruptive behaviors that leads to a better understanding and a deeper investment Ultimately, they lead, they create, they work, and they do much, much, much more. They do what dear loved one who's no longer here and the rest of our mastermind team called Think Into Results, thanks to a leader who is still here. Yeah, think into results. They imagine, mobilize, planned, felt, scrutinize, engage, and take action, and the results manifest. We get to see the manifestation. We get to say, oh my God, look at this extraordinary um, frame someone crafted that's beautiful with the fine details. Look at this extraordinary all in one Apple computer. Look at this extraordinary microphone that is used by, you can fill in the blank. Look at this majestic, like, look at this. Oh my God, this works of arts on the wall. Look at this, this particular texture of the canvas that was drawn on these beautiful carpets on I call them carpets on ceilings, but they're what? Curtains. Look, all of it came from an imagining and ultimately evidence and allowed us to experience this thing we call life in a much more remarkable, responsive way. So today I was looking at an announcement, and then in the process of it on LinkedIn, saw a fellow LinkedIn connection who shared the following, and I think it's so timely. He said, surround yourself with champions. They'll uplift you and challenge your mind to go to new places. Don't be afraid to meet new people and always ask questions. Remember, your network is your net worth. Thank you, Tommy Morgan, Emmy and Clio award-winning executive producer. You understand the power of mindset, and so many folks do. So many of you do. What is it? The mindset of professionals aligned with greatness, personal, personal greatness. Focus on the needs of others. Confidence grows as a result of working, speaking, engaging. These folks, they know that. They may not have known that in advance. In fact, I'm thinking about some folks who work for a number of different organizations. And if I mention them, most of the folks viewing this and others who will view it in the future will say, we know those organizations because we use their technology. We use their tools. We've read their books. We've on and on. And what they all do is reflect individuals who are in those organizations who went there for a job, went there to make their personal difference, to prepare themselves for their next opportunity. And in the process, those individuals blew up. They became the leaders of their units. They developed other leaders. They are on the speaking circuit. And they had no pre thoughts about doing what they're doing now. And yet they engage in such a way with love, care, a belief that they could contribute and make a difference with and through others. They were obsessed. They allowed their obsessions to become what we call their possession. They took leadership responsibility for what they were responsible for. They inspired other people to do the same. They were grateful for the opportunity. They recognized that what they brought to the table mattered. Their energy, their experience, their expertise, their insights mattered. They were present, mind, body, spirit. They looked to the future, they took action now. Future oriented, yet acting now. We call them the current VIPs. current VIPs, exercising vision, invested, taking action with a powerful perspective. They could see the end long before they got there. As people were saying, oh, we should shut this down, shut this unit down. Oh, this is not going to work. There's too much money. We're not bringing enough revenue, whatever. They didn't waver. They were hungry for learning, for growing, for prospering. They worked harder than the next person. They inspired the next person to work smarter. They practiced and did more. They were disciplined. They showed up. They paid the price. They were street fighters. They are street fighters in the way that encourages other people to be street fighters, to resolve the problems, to resolve the issues, to ensure there are solutions that we need. They stuck. They were there for the long term. They were consistent. They persisted. They were determined. They recognized it was all about them. They were responsible. They were mentally tough enough to stay, to work, to produce. They hung on. They broke through. They chose to be remarkable, even though it wasn't even about their ego. It was about creating something. And isn't that what we do all the time? We're creators. They weren't focused on the crowd. They were focused on that big vision. They took the time to observe, to learn, to live the explosive breakthroughs. When everybody else is like, "Oh, I'm exhausted. I don't understand this. This is not me. I can't get this. I'm out of here. This does not edify me in the way that I'm used to being edified." Well, when you make a decision to move in a different direction, you're not going to be rewarded for being the old self. You're experiencing a breakthrough. And that's the moment when a lot of people stop. It's too much. I can't, I can't. That's, you're at the breakthrough moment. These folks didn't stop. They didn't waver. They continued. They expand their understanding, align with the greater purpose. It was much more profound than themselves. And when they understood that they could shift not only the nature of how things worked in order to get a better result, they began to realize they were shifting their own identities, their psychological discomforts, their emotional discomforts. They just walked through it. We call that the terror barrier, when your fears are so overwhelming, whether they're false expectations appearing real or real issues. They just stuck with the discomfort. So there's something better for me on the other end, and this is for the greatest good. So I am not wavering. So they took the tough stuff. They were discomfort. They were uncomfortable. They found it okay, even if they didn't like it. They made it a point to stay in the discomfort, stay in the zone of proximal development, ensure the movement from where they're at right now to where they have the capacity to be. And it literally was not for a lot of these folks about them again. It was about the big picture, yet in the process, they grew. They grew, even though some of them were fired as CEOs of their own company that they built that was successful because personality change. They were not right for the time, supposedly, or they were replaced by people that they trained. They took the time to develop people and they were let go. Or in some instances, they were promoted to lead when their paradigm was only to be in a support role. So they had cognitive dissonance and they functioned in a way where they realized from their perspective, they were an imposter. I don't know how to lead. I just know how to do this. Well, they did know how to lead, but they didn't know. And they were ready, more importantly, to take that next step to lead. Everyone else could see it around them, or key people could, but they couldn't. And so they were in this state of disbelief, fear, and yet they stuck with it. They just because they were fired from an organization that they built, or they were replaced by someone that they developed, or that they took on a role that caused them absolute great distress. Anyone would say, oh my God, they're having a good time and they're just putting on a good face. But inside, they're freaking out. Yet they're sufficiently grounded to take that firing, go cry, lick their wounds, let it go, and get back up and move. Or take that release from their role. Maybe they're put in another part of the organization, say, okay, how can I help? But how can I build what's going to allow me to honor my capacity? And they go ahead and they've gone ahead and done just that. Or you're promoted and they work through the sense of being an imposter and leverage other people, including those that promoted them, so that they can build their capacity, their own leadership confidence. And you don't get leadership confidence by being in the role, as these people signify. You get it. You get it by doing the work, especially the hard work, and witnessing not only the failures, which are preconditioned to successes, really, but also the successes that come from all the risk taking, all the genuine leveraging of others with the expertise to continue to move whatever that needle was that you were moving, move it forward. Whatever that project was, move it forward. Whatever that organization mission was, achieving it. Recognize again that preconditions to success are failures, challenges, problems. In fact, if there's no problem, what's the point of the organization? Are you really providing solutions? Are you really providing innovation that people are going to need long term? Who was it? Another genius of a person, Warren Buffett. He has a YouTube video where he was describing, he was with his partner, and he's on opposite sides of the table, and he was reminding people, look at the list of all the different organizations that were the top corporations on the planet in time. This was years ago. Are any of them at the top now? Talking about US companies in particular. Zero. And look at the top currently, top 5 among the top 6 in the world. How many of those will be the top corporations in just 10, 20 years from now? So we should not assume just because something worked yesterday, it's going to work tomorrow, or something was needed yesterday, that there won't be a better product that people will demand tomorrow. So what folks do, these business leaders, these business professionals, these folks who are extraordinary, they don't rest on their laurels. They look for problems to solve. They look for challenges as opportunities to create something better that exists now. They actually take risks to fail forward in order to build anew. So those things and much more is what works. So why not copy what works? If it works, leverage it. Stack the affirmative and also the good. Not only in having a positive attitude, but leveraging what works and what's effective. And that ensures, doesn't mean that your organization won't go through that cycle. We call it organizational demography, where the birth, the growth, the height of the organization, the transition, either death or revitalization of that organization. It's going to go through all those cycles. The key thing is to know what cycle the organization is in and to move accordingly. And then there's so much more that business leaders do that is absolutely crazy. And I laugh, I giggle because I'm thinking about me. I've done it. I've done it many times throughout my career. And people would either call me from crazy to nuts to, oh my God, you're just wired. What's going on in you? It's like you're something's wrong. You're shaking. But I wasn't physically shaking, but the energy was shaking everything. Where we go nuts for months, for years. The momentum is so extraordinary. It's magic when you're in the zone. You know this watching sports, you know this watching, extraordinary performance, whether it's a theatrical performance or a dance performance or a musical performance. You know this when you see it. When everything is so perfectly aligned, there is pure perfection. And I don't mean humans are perfect. We don't need to be. I don't think that's a nature. If we were perfect, we would no longer be humans. I think I'm talking about literally the knowledge, the feelings, the actions, the vision, the expertise, the whatever, all the complements come together and they're pure integrated. And everything is just magic. So try to give just a hodgepodge, but organized hodgepodge, if you will, a perspective about the just do it perspective of so many leaders. They just do it. Yeah, there are issues that they recognize their issues. They just do it. Yeah, there are complications and there's problems and there's the possibility of the organization failing. And literally in a month, they get up and they still do it. There are uh, plenty of issues with individuals because we bring our stuff to the table. We're not, whoever we are at home, whoever we're out in the streets, whoever we are at work, we're still the same person. So if we've got stuff at home or in the streets, we'll bring it to work. So we've got to deal with that. Just do it, deal with it. The power of organizational leaders who understand and use a system, who understand and are unwavering in their focus, who understand and leverage assets, people assets, and other kinds of assets. The power of those folks is that they do it and they do it over and over and over again. They don't waver. Yes, they may get tired, and yes, they may have an ailment. As Kobe Bryant said, who would be on that court no matter what. Mm, wow. Some of the stuff he went through, he needed to demonstrate. He was leading by example. He was leading not only for his teammates, he was leading for his children. He was leading for the rest of us, and even and to some degree, he didn't even know he was leading for a lot of us. Whether it's a Kobe, whether it's a Jordan, whether it is a Curry, I can go through a lot of names, or the magical women who are golfers, who are, oh my goodness, tennis players, who are swimmers, who are race car drivers, who are racers, if you will, as human beings. They are track stars, basketball phenomenons, sports, musical entertainment, theatrical entertainment, or as I said, in businesses, profit and nonprofit, I call them entertainment too. They can be extremely entertaining. And if we are careful, we bring fun to the equation in those organizations in order to allow for a complement of diversity to live and thrive in it, in these successful organizations. We got it years ago and we started adding restrooms, and I mean rooms for resting during break times. When we started adding cafeterias at no cost to employees. No, it's not everywhere, but somewhere, some places. We started adding childcare facilities. I know it's not everywhere, but some places. When we started adding sports facilities, not for everybody, I get it, and not everywhere, but some places. When we started adding play time, where people can play, whether it's cards or it's dominoes or it's some other kind of game where we are really about the total complement of the human being in the workplace. Where we understand the essence of who we are, we don't negate the person when they come in. If they're religious or they exercise a certain spiritual practice, they're honored. They have family and family obligation, that's honored. Businesses are shifting in ways that couldn't imagine just 10 years ago. Yes, we already know that we're more remote than we were 50 years ago. I remember meeting a dear friend of mine's loved ones, and he was working at Apple at the time. This was back in the 80s. And he was already working remotely, and that was considered to be crazy, weird. And yet, it was what a lot of us understood to be the wave of the future, not because of a pandemic. Regrettably, COVID-19 pandemic accelerated a lot. So some of those things that accelerated actually are to our advantage. Too much was painful, harmful. Yet just remember, out of any given challenge or difficulty or even traumatic experience can come some awesome opportunity. And that's what I want to remind people of. As you think about this success notion, the predictable result of hard work, patience, sacrifice, and learning put into practice every day, and you think about your organization, you think about what you're doing in building your own organization, I want you to think about the capacity you have to actually knock things out the park on a consistent basis. That means you stick with it. It means you don't waver. It means you leverage a system, you stay focused, and you leverage people with the expertise who've done it and done it well successfully more than once. And if you can't connect with them one on one, at least leverage their books. There's so many references to systems and antidotes to what ails us, and so many texts. If you are stuck someplace and you want to know more and you want to leverage us, contact us. In fact, take a screenshot, contact us. There's so many people, resources we can recommend for you to leverage. Leverage, though. Be the success that you envision, not tomorrow, not hopefully in a future part of your life, now. Do it now because you can. And just know that anything that's worth experiencing is worth your investment now. Anything that is worth literally living for your children, your partners, your own organization, people, life itself is worth your investing what you need to invest now. Stick with it. You'd be surprised what happens. I remember being at the cusp of deciding, do I complete my PhD program, or just call it a day? Because too many things had happened that happened to me. So I thought. And literally, any rational person would say that happened to you. That was not good. You should do this. You should do. I had so many different opinions when people find out what's happening to me. Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell us? Da, 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 da. You should just do this. You should do. And I tune them down, and then I begin to listen more to me. Why am I here to begin with? What was this all about? Was this for somebody else or was this for me? And if it was for me, why did I choose to put myself through this? Ah, it was for me. And I chose to do it for X reason. So then I got to finish it. And so I broke through the terror barrier and I finished. And the difference between me and others who are part of my cohort and other cohorts who didn't finish had nothing to do with their capacity. Arguably more intelligent than I, arguably innately more talented than I. The difference is I remain steadfast. They chose not to. And they had a right to. They're not inherently better or worse than I. They just chose to deter from what they had focused on because stuff happened. Life happens to all of us, folks. The power is not in assuming that it's happening to us. The power is recognizing that life happens for us. Emphasis added, life happens for us. So I encourage you, As you move forward and you experience any challenge, ask yourself, what's my big why and how can I leverage this? So it becomes an opportunity rather than a deterrent, rather than an insurmountable barrier. It doesn't mean that you've got to crash right through it. There may be a way for you to leverage someone to literally have that barrier be removed. You just keep going. Or there may be another way for you to move around the barrier or go above the barrier. Whatever, there's more than one way to address what is really a problem. But then, what is life about anyway? Think about it. Life is about problem solving. We're constantly problem solving. And the moment we stop problem solving, guess what? The moment we stop growing. The moment we stop growing, the moment we stop living. Problem solve, growth. We learned something new. We added something new to our portfolio of options, of resources to use, whether it's for ourselves in the future, someone else in the future, a child of ours, a mate of ours, our business. Problems are awesome. When you shift in a way where you recognize that life happens for you, oh my God. You get up in the morning in a different way. You just say gratitude. Thank you. Before you go to bed, you're like smiling or whatever you do. And you're saying, thank you. You're saying, why don't? Oh my God. You're saying gracias, muchas gracias. You are engaged. You're just so appreciative. Someone does something stupid, you're like, oh my God, not again. Not again. Okay, that is something for me to learn from. Maybe it's more patience. Maybe it's for me to grow up in a way that I still need to grow up. Life happens for us. And when we understand that, we lean in even more. And we're like, okay, the lesson is, my big why is, and then you look at the lesson, maybe you get it, maybe you don't, but you work through it to get to the why. When you don't have a why, it's understandable why things look like challenges or problems that are insurmountable, etc. When you have a big why for your life, all of a sudden you wrap everything up and you have a reason to move forward to address whatever those things are. Success. We get to define it for ourselves. The predictable result of hard work, patience, sacrifice, and learning put into everyday practice. Success. Ask yourself, why are you here? If not to be successful in one or many ways. And when you clarify for yourself why, and hopefully you already know why, you will enable yourself to be even more successful than you've been to date. I honor you, proud of you, and only wish the best for you. Why don't?